Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Questions and Answers. Today is Sunday, the 14th of July. We've got a host of pretty good questions here. What I've done is I've gone in and picked an assortment of them. We had well over 100 questions over the last week, but I picked like around 15 or so that look really good, so we're going to dive right into them here. So the first one is from Nick Usofian. Nick asks, "Hey Pete, thanks for the response last week. I've noticed that you prefer CDs over vinyl. Are there any reasons for that? Is it that CDs take up less space, have a sound you prefer, or something else? I'm personally a CD guy since they can be converted to MP3s, but I have some vinyl myself. Thank you for your time and rock on." It's basically because I have CDs because I've been collecting them since, 89 or 90. And, I had stopped collecting vinyl probably a couple of years before that. So I had probably like maybe 300 or 400 vinyl that I accumulated between the late 70s and like, say, 85 or so. And then I started buying cassettes for a couple of years. So I had a whole bunch of cassettes for a while, and then I started with CDs. And, probably not a good decision, but my parents were having a yard sale a bunch of years ago, like 20 years ago, and they had all my old vinyl sitting at their house, and they're like, "Are you ever going to take these vinyl?" And I'm like, I don't really have any room for them. I've converted to CD and, whatever. They're like, "Well, we're thinking of selling them at the yard sale." I'm like, "Okay." And then like some guy came and offered like, like $100 for the whole lot. And there they went. So do I wish I still had them? Probably. I don't know where I would put them. As far as like sound, and they take up a lot of space, yes. I haven't had a turntable and listened to albums in so long that I almost don't even remember like what it's like to listen to albums. I remember loving it obviously when I was younger, but I'm perfectly happy with CDs, and to me they sound great. All right. Do I miss like the whole big aspect of looking at the album and way? Yeah, but at this point, I still have like maybe 20 vinyl, if that. But will I ever go back? Probably not. I just have too much invested in this, and they're everywhere, right? So. From Johnny Perot. "Hi Pete, I was watching your classic album wars between Kiss and Alice Cooper yesterday. Now I got a question regarding producers. In your opinion, can they make or break a band? As you said, Bob Ezrin did good things for Alice Cooper and he gave Kiss a new sound with Destroyer. But he's also responsible for The Elder, which almost was a demolition for my beloved band. And Bob Rock, he made Metallica a mainstream band. So my question, what's your opinion on producers?" I mean, every producer has his own stamp, or her own stamp, in most cases his, and some of them have a distinct sound. So the albums that they work on, doesn't matter who the band is, there is a sound. Like you mentioned Bob Ezrin. There's a Bob Ezrin sound, okay? He produced, worked with, Floyd and Alice Cooper and Kiss, and then recently with Deep Purple, and you listen to an album that he produces and it has a similar type sound, okay? How about Martin Birch, okay, who produced, Purple and Rainbow and Whitesnake and Iron Maiden and a whole host of others. All those albums, Blue Oyster Cult, all those albums have a certain sound. And there's some, Mutt Lange, another one, okay? You listen to Def Leppard before and after Mutt Lange, kind of a different band, right? So I think a lot of producers can really put their stamp and kind of change the way a band sounds a bit. That could be good or bad to some people, okay? I think, at the core, a band sounds like a band sounds. But with all the studio trickery and things you can do, you can obviously enhance or detract from that sound. So can they make or break a band? I think so. I think so. And there have been plenty of instances of that over the years. So from Jukebox Cowboy, "How would you describe your overall approach to creating a new YouTube video? What do you consider the key ingredients? Your videos are simple, have good lighting, and judging by the number of plays and subscribers, get the job done. I teach video editing classes and would pass your advice on to my students." Well, there's a couple ways of doing things. So I'm an old school guy. To me, simplest is best. There's a lot of people out there who have YouTube shows, YouTube channels, where it's all about the special effects and the editing, and they try to make it this whole multimedia bonanza, and there's a lot of people who like that. Okay, they like to have all the quick cuts and edits and splice in music and clips of this and clips of that and all that kind of stuff, and that's all fine and dandy. It's not me. All right, for this type of show, I don't think you need all the bells and whistles. But, your mileage may vary. So my opinion, it's like you have a decent background that's kind of interesting for the viewer. Okay, most people like to see guitars and CDs and movies and stuff like that. Okay, as opposed to, in the old days I used to record from all over the house, and sometimes you get the background doesn't really work. If you got a banner, even better, all that kind of sort of thing. We have a banner for the Comic Book Geezers YouTube channel, which works out really nice. But my approach is to keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? It seems to work for this format. Okay, it's a talk show. Would I love at some point in the future, to have like a multi-camera shoot if I have guests on, stuff like that? Absolutely. Am I going to aspire to that at some point? Perhaps. People seem to really like the simplicity of this show. All right. And for right now, I have literally no budget for this show. I do this as a labor of love. People seem to enjoy it. But yeah, if you're obviously, there's a lot that can be done with video editing. And it's not, there's a lot, even just with a laptop, right? There's a lot of things you can do. So it depends on the content, right? So if you're teaching a video editing class, obviously if it's more of a talk show type of thing, you want to keep it simple, all right? If it's something different, I subscribe to a couple different YouTube channels, like one in particular, Anderton's Music. Okay, they're from the UK. I think they do a great job, and they use a little bit of studio, video editing wizardry at times. But for the most part, it's like a 2-camera shoot with couple guys sitting there talking about guitars and gear and all that kind of sort of thing, playing a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And, they do a really good job with the editing. The audio sounds great, so they obviously everything is mic'd up perfectly. They got really good microphones and cameras, so it helps when you have that kind of budget behind you, which I don't have. Where are we? From Ninja Badger. Hi, Pete. I've noticed the channel is almost exclusively top 10 and classic album wars now. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy these, but kind of miss the rants and history of videos you used to feature regularly. I understand you only have so much time to put in, but you're planning to get to do more of these going forward. Also waiting on Iron Maiden history of if it's still happening. And saying all this, I would like to close with a thank you for all the great content to date. Thank you for watching. So first of all, yeah, you may have noticed that as of the last few months, the bulk of what I've been doing is these top 10 songs, classic album wars, and the new product, the What's Hot shows. When I first started this channel almost 5 years ago, that's exclusively what I did. I did nothing but What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility, and it was just a vehicle to promote new releases from new or older bands. It was just an extension of our website, right? Over time, I started doing things like history of shows and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy doing the history of shows. The problem is, it's a lot of work, a lot of research. You got to put all this stuff together, which is why I haven't done as many of them. And yes, we are still going to do the Iron Maiden one. It's just it's summertime. Chris Allen and I, we keep saying we got to do it. It's hard to schedule things in the summertime because everybody's got so much going on. So no, I have not forgotten the history of shows. You're just not going to see them as often, but they will pop up from time to time. As far as like the classic album wars, that's hot right now. See, you know what it is? It's funny because when I started doing the top 10 song show, which again was based on requests from viewers, that took off like wildfire. Now, over the last month or so, not as many people seem to watch the top 10 song shows as much. I noticed the views on the top 10 song shows get dwindling and dwindling. Whereas, in the past I would post one on a fairly, well-known popular band and it would get 2,000-3,000 views within the span of a couple days. Now it takes a week or two to get to 1,000. Again, it kind of always depends on the group. I understand that. But right now, the Classic Album Wars show, other than a handful of people who don't seem to like them at all, and whatever, to each his own, most people seem to really be digging them, and that's kind of like the hot thing around. So I try to play the hot hand. I go with what people like. And when the classic album war thing starts to, fade a little bit, I'll move on to something else. But I still have, and the rants too. I was doing a lot of rants for a while, but you have to come up with good ideas for rants. I enjoy the rants. I enjoy doing the rants probably more than anything else. So usually when something strikes me, I'm like, damn, I want to go talk about that. That's when you'll see a rant. So the rants will pop up periodically too. But I have, guys, if you saw my list of things to do on this channel, it's enormous. So don't think that your favorite feature has disappeared just because you haven't seen it lately. It's just that I'm kind of playing the hot hand right now with the classic album wars. And, that'll peter out. After a while, I'll probably I think I've exhausted everything because I'm doing one every day pretty much. So, but yeah, just stay tuned. All the content's going to keep coming. And if you're not seeing your favorite show theme that we do here as often, it'll probably come back around. So just sit tight, all right? From Chet Greblowski. Pete, after watching your Album Wars Alice Cooper versus Kiss video, I started thinking of stage shows, and the few that came to mind are Blue Oyster Cult on the Cultosaurus Erectus tour with the giant Godzilla blowing smoke on stage. Maiden's Peace of Mind tour with the giant lobotomized Eddie, and Tull's Broadsword and the Beast tour where the stage was a giant Viking ship. What are your favorites? Well, I saw Blue Oyster Cult on the Fire of Unknown Origin tour, and they were still doing the giant Godzilla. That was kind of cool. I think one of the most mind-blowing shows I've ever seen from a kind of production standpoint was Iron Maiden's Power Slave tour, which was right after the Peace of Mind tour. That was just, I mean, the whole stage was set up like an Egyptian, setting, and the giant Eddie, and I mean, that was just like amazing. And I saw that at Radio City Music Hall. That was pretty wild. Judas Priest doing the Defenders of the Faith tour was pretty mind-blowing. I saw Kiss like probably 6 years ago, and that was, again, a Kiss show that's theater, right? Basically right there. I also thought, you mentioned Alice Cooper. I saw Alice Cooper, believe it or not, for the first time ever, like 5, maybe 6 years ago. And that was a spectacle. Again, it was in the Beacon Theater in New York City, which is not the biggest stage in the world, but it's good size. And man, that was really cool. You got all the props and all that kind of stuff. So there's been quite a lot. I probably could think of a lot more, from a pure spectacle thing, I think seeing Yes in the round on the Union tour with, most of all the living members was pretty cool. All right, with the stage going around and everything like that. Not really mind-blowing as far as like lighting and lasers and all that kind of stuff, but just a really, really cool experience. All right, from Amadeo Eichberg. Stellar closing tracks on albums can serve as a summation of an LP's themes and allows listeners to go out on a high note. Trio of favorites in this regard: Black Sabbath, Into the Void, Iron Maiden, Hallowed, and Rush, Countdown. What are your favorite closers? Conversely, which otherwise great albums bow out with a whimper? Oh my God, that probably deserves its own show. Hallowed Be Thy Name doesn't get much better than that to close out an album. How about Emerald, Thin Lizzy, off of Jailbreak? Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I may actually do a whole show on that at some point. That's a really good idea. From Fred Hamilton. In a previous Q&A show, you said the years 70 to 75 produced the music which is most iconic to you, yet you were obviously a bit too young to be fully aware of it at the time. You didn't start even attending concerts till the 80s, so you missed out on a lot of the great live shows. Do you ever wish you had been born earlier to have better experienced those musical years? Or are you perfectly happy with how your age matches up with your musical taste? I mean, I'm not going to lie. It would have been really cool to see bands like Zeppelin, in their heyday, or, go to see the Stones in 72, or, whatever. I mean, all those great concerts, like from 70 to 75. However, I'm pretty happy with, the age I am at. And, throughout my life, I've been able to experience the music that came out and was popular when I was just a little bit too young for it. So I'm totally cool with that, but would it be nice to take like a time machine back in time and go to see like a handful of concerts, maybe to be at Woodstock or something like that? I would totally love that. That would be totally cool. But otherwise I'm happy because, if otherwise I'd be probably in my 60s, right? Or about 60 if I was to kind of turn back the clock and do that all over again, which I'm not quite ready for yet. So, but good question. From Jamie Laszlo. How ridiculous are we all going to look when we're still wearing rock t-shirts at the age of 85? Speaking for myself, I'll probably be wearing a shirt from a future band whose members aren't even born yet. Yeah, I mean, I have like hundreds of band t-shirts and concert t-shirts, and I'm still wearing them. I know people who are my age and a little bit older who are still wearing them. It's like, will we look ridiculous? Yeah, but who gives a shit, right? It's what we love. It's what we love. Got to promote these bands and the music, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's 85, I don't know about 85, but, the next 10, 20 years, hell yeah, I'll still be wearing them. From Drum Music Inc., I'd be curious, too, to see a percentage breakdown of your subscribers as to musicians and non-musicians. So would I. It's been my experience that all my friends who are deeply into music are musicians on some level. This could be because I spent 37 years as a pro musician and all my friends are musicians. Has this been your experience as well? Why do you think that it is? Curious to hear your thoughts. I guarantee you that a good chunk of my viewers, as well as readers on the website, are probably musicians or have been musicians. But I just think that there's a lot of people that I know who are really into all this kind of music don't play any musical instruments. They're just totally into the music. But I'm sure there's a good chunk. I would love to see what the numbers are. You know what I might do, so you guys can all be on the lookout for that? I might put up a little, in the community section of the YouTube channel, there's a place where I could put up a poll. And what I'll do is I'll go in there and I'll pose a little question, are you a musician or a non-musician? And you can put your answer there. So I'd be curious to see, out of all the 7,100 people who subscribe to this channel, how many will actually go there and fill out that little question. So I'm going to do that after the show. Be interesting to see, right? Because I really have no idea. I'm assuming it'll be pretty high, though. From Tate Davis. Hey, Pete, my question today revolves around UFO. Do you think that they were a massive influence on the new wave of British heavy metal movement? When I listen to bands like Tigers of Pantang, Iron Maiden, and Saxon, I hear traces of Michael Schenker's guitar style along with an emphasized version of Phil Mogg's gut-belting vocal style. Your thoughts? Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that that UFO, Schenker in particular, was a huge influence on a lot of those bands coming out of Great Britain in the late 70s and the early 80s, without a doubt. And you could probably name any number of other bands, you know, even little bits of Diamond Head. I think some of the vocals in early Diamond Head, definitely UFO influence. The band Satan with some of the guitar work, also some Schenker influence there. I think UFO is a highly influential band. You know, we talked about this numerous times on this channel. Bands like UFO and Thin Lizzy and you know, Blue Oyster Cult, those bands are incredibly influential. Never mega bands, but so influential. And you know, you talk to a lot of people, a lot of bands, especially that came around in the 80s, you know, just as influential as, you know, Sabbath, Purple, and Zeppelin. Okay, so yeah, absolutely, give them some credit. Tate also says, P.S. I caught the Royal Affair tour in Illinois last night. All 4 bands were firing on all cylinders and were awesome. I mean, that's great. You know, I took some shit from a handful of people on my review of the Royal Affair tour in Bethel Woods because, you know, I didn't proclaim that Yes were amazing that night. The truth of the matter, they weren't. I've seen Yes like 20 times. I love Yes. I always support Yes. You know what, though? You can't just lie and say the band were great, you know, if they weren't. I try to be very truthful on this channel. And I didn't think Yes were great that night. Were they okay? Yeah, they were okay. I've seen them much better. They just sounded tired to me. But I've heard mixed things from people who have seen this tour in various venues. Some who have said that all the bands were great and Yes were great and Asia were not. Some said Asia were great, you know, Asia were bad and Yes were great. You know, all sorts of different combinations and what have you. You know, and that's great. Every band is not going to be exactly the same from a night-to-night perspective. And if if maybe, you know, you go to this tour and it's the first time you've seen Asia, the first time you've seen Yes, you know, you might think they were awesome, right? I've seen them many times. Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit more critical. But I just didn't think Yes were great the night I saw them. So if you happen to see this tour and at the venue you see it at, the bands were fantastic, that's awesome, because I wish every band was fantastic the night that I saw them. They were all good. I walked out of it, I was, you know, kind of a little disappointed because I, you know, expected a little more maybe. The crowd certainly didn't help because it was a much older crowd, a lot older than me. And I'm an old guy. And I just think people were just not into, they just wanted to hear the radio hits and they wanted to be home by 9:30, 10 o'clock. And it was just weird. It was weird to see. But I guess that's what happens when, you know, a lot of these older acts, you know, their fans are old too, and they just don't like going out to live music. But I thought Yes were good, but they were not one of the better shows I've ever seen them, you know. And I'm sorry if I'm, you know, critical to you know, a couple of guys in the band, but it's, you know, it is what it is, right? I'm not going to just, you know, stroke the band's ego and say that, you know, I've supported all those bands for most of my life. Okay, so I'm not trying to be a dick and say that, you know, they were bad just because I want to be a dick and say they were bad. I mean, I wanted to walk out of that show and be blown away, and I really wasn't, so I'm just being truthful here. From Scott Myers. Hey, Pete, my wife and I went to the Tailwinds Music Fest in Wappingers Falls last Saturday. It's up near me. Operation Mindcrime was a pleasant surprise. Very tight, sounded great. Blackstone Cherry kicked ass as usual. My favorite band. It was a very well-run event, and we had a great time. Unfortunately, the turnout was poor at best. I'm guessing approximately 500 people when they were hoping for 5,000. Since you live around there, and did you hear much promotion for the event, or was it kept a secret? We also went to Dark Side Records and Rock Fantasy on Sunday. Great weekend. Ah, very cool. Very cool. I haven't been to Dark Side Records. I shouldn't say ever, because I think I went there a couple times in the 80s because they've been around for a long time. But Rock Fantasy, my buddy owns that place, and I go there all the time. Great place. All right, so back to Tailwinds Music Festival. So here's the deal. Let me take a quick sip. I didn't go to that. That's like, you know, 15, 20 minutes from where I live. I didn't go because, quite frankly, the lineup didn't really thrill me, and I had other stuff going on that weekend anyway. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the summertime, and to give up a whole Saturday, you know, just to go to see a show is a lot sometimes. But, you know, Operation Mindcrime, yeah, most people I talked to said that it was quite good. They were quite good. You know, I love Jeff Tate, but unfortunately, he's like kind of, you know, all he's doing is basically rehashing that album, okay, and a couple other Queensryche tunes, because quite frankly, his solo material and the Operation Mindcrime band material is really weak as far as I'm concerned. So if he's got nothing better to do than to go out and play Queensryche classics, you know, so be it, right? Whatever. He still can sing those, obviously. You know, his voice isn't what it was, but it's still, you know, it's Jeff Tate, right? So, so I didn't really have any interest in seeing them. I'm not a huge King's X fan. I know most people are mind blown who know what I like and all that kind of stuff, and they just can't believe that I just don't totally love King's X. I don't dislike them. I have a bunch of their albums. You know, they're good. I've never been completely blown away by King's X, and I don't know why, because they should be a band that I absolutely love. It is what it is. Black Stone Cherry, I just saw last year, open up for Government Mule. They kick ass, right? I'd rather go see them on their own. Chris Robinson's band, you know, can give or take. I like the Black Crowes a lot. I've heard some of the solo stuff with this band. It's good. It's kind of jam bandy. And then you had Sass Jordan. You know, she's a great singer. I don't really know a lot of stuff by her. A friend of mine who works at Gold's Gym, where I go work out, his band also played at this show, opened up, and he said some great things about the show itself and the way they set up the stage and all that. But to get back to the whole thing, so my problem is I think that the lineup just didn't make any sense. And I know some people who are very tight with the folks who arranged this whole thing and booked all the bands, and they went out to get some really good and big bands. It just didn't happen. Okay, so they had to get who they can get, and unfortunately, you know, it wasn't a lineup that would appeal to all the real headbangers, because there wasn't enough of them, right? You had a jam band guy headlining, but no other jam bands on the bill. So most of those jam band fans are probably thinking, oh, I'm not going to sit through Jeff Tate and King's X and all that other stuff, right? And then, you know, so you didn't have, it just was a really weird mix of styles and bands that didn't really appeal to a large number of people. And I heard that the stage was gorgeous. I heard they had plenty of refreshments and food and all that kind of stuff there. But it was like 95 degrees that day and humid as all hell. So, but yeah, no, they were promoting this like crazy. Between the radio stations and all over Facebook and various people that I know who were kind of, you know the people who put this on and stuff, there was promotion up the yin yang, buy one ticket, get one free for a couple days, all this kind of stuff, and just people just didn't bite. I think they didn't bite because there was no real true headlining band. And you had all these bands, you know, so a lot of people are like, yeah, I like that one band, but I could care less about the rest. Well, I like this band and that band, but the rest I could care less about. It's a whole day thing. So I just think in the end, it didn't work because the lineup just didn't mesh at all. Will they try it again? I don't know, because I also heard they maybe had 500-600 people at the most there, and a lot of people didn't stay for the whole thing because it just was just too damn hot. So, yeah, you know, they were definitely hoping for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That's what I heard, and I think they needed to get at least 3,000 to kind of break even. So, from what I heard, they lost a lot of money at this thing, but it's a shame. I hope it happens again. Hope they get a better lineup. I'd consider going, but you know, from BB Nuck. Okay, I'm one of those older guys who wishes I could find newer music that I can enjoy, because you can only listen to the old stuff so many times. How about making a top 10 of newer music that you would recommend for dinosaurs like me? You can even break it into separate categories to get more mileage out of it, prog, hard rock, etc. Well, I'm not going to go doing all that breaking up stuff, but I did put together a list for you. But what I would highly recommend is to go to www.seaoftranquility.org and go to our end-of-year best-of kind of lists, where myself and the rest of our writers kind of put down all of our top releases of the year. What you'll do is you'll find there a lot of, you know, older bands and a lot of new stuff, and you'll see kind of what over the years has been my favorite releases of the year. And if you see some acts you never heard of, that's a good place to go and say, you know what, let me check out that album. Let me check out that album. But I got some bands together for you. So this is a mix of hard rock and metal and prog, right? Lucifer, a band out of Sweden, great. Kind of, you know, occult lyrics, but really good, like 70s heavy rock, okay, with female vocals. Dynamite. Rival Sons, if you haven't listened to Rival Sons, they're from San Francisco. Great 70s style hard rock band. awesome. Sons of Apollo, really good kind of progressive metal band with some veterans of the scene. Okay, you got Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater on drums. You got Jeff Scott Soto on vocals. You got Bumblefoot on guitar. Okay, Derek Sherinian on keyboards. Great, great stuff. Really good progressive metal. Real catchy. A lot of good hooks. Magic Pie, a great prog rock band from Norway. Okay, really, really good. They mix like kind of 70s prog and hard rock. Really, a lot of good vocal hooks. Haken. Haken's from Sweden, right? I believe so. No, Haken's from the UK, sorry. Haken, really good progressive metal band that's come out about in the last, like, what, 7, 8 years or so. Really good mix of kind of progressive metal and straight prog rock. Very melodic, great musicianship. Seventh Wonder out of Sweden, another great progressive metal band. A lot of hooks. Okay, the singer also sings for Camelot. That's another really great band, kind of like a symphonic power metal band. The Vintage Caravan, who are from Iceland, really good 70s style hard rock band. If you like the early Scorpion stuff, maybe a little Deep Purple, Sabbath. The Golden Grass from Brooklyn, New York. If you love like old, Grand Funk Railroad and The Who and Deep Purple and the Touch of Zeppelin and Sabbath, really good, a lot of grooves, great addicting tunes. The band, a heavy metal band called The Wizards. They kind of sound like that new wave of British heavy metal movement. All right, really good band. Wobbler from Norway. Fantastic 70s style symphonic prog rock band. If you love all the vintage keyboards like, Mellotron and Hammond organ and Moog synthesizer and all that kind of stuff, fantastic band. Witchcraft, also from Sweden, another really good 70s style heavy rock band. The Neil Morse band, Neil Morse and Company, they're from the US. Great kind of modern prog rock. Really melodic. They like to do the concept album thing too. A lot of long tunes and great musicianship with vocals. Graveyard from Sweden, another 70s style heavy rock band. Blues Pills. They're also, I think part of them are from Sweden, part of them from the UK. Another good like 70s style blues rock band. So if you like Free, like Paul Rodgers and Free, Bad Company, but with female vocals, really good. Horizont. Horizont, also from Sweden, good heavy rock band. Troubled Horse, also from Sweden. A lot of great stuff from Sweden, man. Troubled Horse, another great 70s style heavy rock band. Vanden Plas, okay. God, Vanden Plas from Germany, progressive metal band. Okay, if you like Dream Theater, stuff like that, you'll love little bits of early Kansas maybe. Great band, great vocals, great musicianship, very symphonic. Symphony X from New Jersey, great progressive metal, power metal band, killer guitar work and keyboards, great vocals, and I already mentioned Camelot. So there you got some stuff to check out, but I would definitely go to our Sea of Tranquility webzine and check out the end of year, and we have each year listed up there, and just kind of see some of the stuff, the more recent things that maybe you haven't heard of. From Caspar Baylock, thanks for another great show, Pete. I have a question. As you might have guessed, my all-time favorite album is Come Taste the Band. Ever since I first heard that album, I've been wondering where that typical sound and musical style comes from. The first clue is listening to Spectrum, the Billy Cobham record, but where else does the sound of Come Taste the Band come from? Or is it just Tommy Bolin or what it is? No, man. Listen, Burn and Stormbringers kind of bridge the gap to make that happen. I think, Tommy Bolin's influence, obviously, you can't get past that. But however, I think the Come Taste the Band album, and especially the Stormbringer album, sound like they do because of Glenn Hughes. Glenn, and Coverdale too, to an extent. They were just into bluesier, funkier music. And, once you brought Tommy Bolin into the band, he also, that's why that Come Taste the Band album is like, Stormbringer was going in a couple different directions because you got Blackmore was still there trying to fight to do the stuff that he wanted to do, but I think Coverdale and Hughes, their influence was really starting to take over the band. And I think once Blackmore left, they had the freedom to totally go in that direction. And then you add Tommy Bolin into the mix, who Hughes especially had a really good kinship with. Those guys became buddies, and they musically came from the same background. That's what it was. So, and I think by the time Come Taste the Band came around, John Lord had very little to do with the musical direction, nor Ian Pace, and the other guys that basically took over the sound of that band. So I personally like Come Taste the Band quite a bit. Really good album, really underrated album. I've liked it more as I've gotten older too. But I think, it's Bolin and Hughes and Coverdale. That's the album that there was no way that album wasn't going to sound that way after how Stormbringer was, Blackmore leaving, and Bolin coming in. It was inevitable. From Marvin Battle Jr. Hey, Pete, what 10 bands would you consider to be the best progressive rock bands to hit the scene post-99, 5 metal, 5 non-metal? I just kind of answered that question, so I threw a whole bunch out at you. We could probably do even more than that, but that's there's a good place to start. From Michael Morgan, hey Pete, love your show and respect your views and opinions. Now, most of the artists, bands, etc. from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s are iconic. Their music and performances have really stood the test of time. I'm pretty sure in 50 years or even 100 years from now, or 20 years, people will still remember the Beatles, the Stones, Elvis, and many other great acts. My question is, what do you think is going to happen to all the newer rock acts and stars? Do you think their music will stand the test of time as well? To me, U2, Metallica, and a few others might be iconic for a while, but most I think will fade into obscurity. What do you think? I have to agree to you, and I kind of, if you go back to our rant playlist, look at the one that I did about the fact that we don't have any rock stars anymore, right? Or we're not producing rock stars anymore. It's just a different time, okay? The younger generation don't stay hooked on a singer or a band or an artist over the course of their career anymore. And that's what helps to elevate some of these bands and artists, right? Because you've got people who are loyal to their music, they're loyal to them, and they follow them and support them throughout their career and help elevate them to that status by repeat, album sales and all that kind of singles and all that kind of stuff. And in the 80s, you had, the MTV thing, right? That doesn't happen anymore. It's like most people, and I'm not just gonna single out younger folks, because a lot of older music lovers do the same thing. They'll jump on a band or a singer or whatever based on one hit single, one song or whatever. Or they played the song, it was featured in a movie, or they sang it at the Grammy Awards or whatever, and then, the next year something else comes out that's popular for them, and they jump on that, and then all of a sudden, those artists that they were into a year or two ago, they could care less about. They're still releasing albums? Oh, yeah, I stopped listening to them. I listen to this now. You hear that all the time. All the time. So you have people like me who I'm still listening to a lot of bands and artists, like you mentioned, that I listened to when I was a kid. I still support them. So I honestly don't think that we're making those icons anymore. Okay? I totally agree with you. I think 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, people are still going to be talking about the Beatles and the Stones and Zeppelin and Tina Turner and Fleetwood Mac and, Boston and, all these like iconic bands. Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix and The Who and, all this stuff, and Metallica and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. We're still going to be talking about them. But 20, 30 years from now, are people going to still be talking about Marilyn Manson? I don't know. Or the Foo Fighters? I don't know. Remains to be seen. Or Adele, or, Christina Aguilera. I don't know. It's hard to say. We'll have to wait and see. I kind of doubt it, though. Because, you mentioned U2 and Metallica who got really big in the 80s. They're still really talked about. People still follow them. People still go to see them live in droves and buy their music and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have to see. But I kind of agree. I think that a lot of them are going to fade. From Scott McGregor. Hey, Pete. I have friends who watch YouTube and see these kid prodigies and are completely knocked out. Maybe it's because I've been a musician for 4.5 decades, but very few ever move me. I watched an interview with Eddie Jobson recently, and I found fascinating. I didn't realize that he started with Curved Air when he was just 17, and by the time he was 30, he played Curved Air, Brian Ferry, Frank Zappa, King Crimson, UK, and Jethro Tull. Crazy, right? It seems like back in the day, prodigies found musical environments to find their individual voices. Steve Vai and Neil Schon found musicians to find their individual voices. It seems like most of these kids on YouTube ape an artist and become YouTube stars and are never heard of again. It seems like YouTube stars have stunted the growth of possible great music. What do you think? The problem is the music industry sucks. That's why. Musicians, and especially young musicians, don't have an outlet. Their chances of them getting signed with a band or a major label deal for something that they had created, or audition for and join an Ozzy Osbourne or Iron Maiden or what have you as a guitar player, bassist, drummer, or whatever, that doesn't happen much anymore. There's no outlet. So these kids, learning an instrument and trying to make a name for themselves, what's the easiest way to do it? It's like free, basically, is you go and you make videos and put them on YouTube. And you hope that people see them. But, the problem is a lot of these kids, or people in general, are just, you're absolutely right. They're playing licks from their favorite guitar players or favorite keyboard players or singing songs by their favorite singers. And that's the new thing. I was like, wow, did you see that video from, you know, that person on YouTube? Oh, I heard that they may be on American Idol at some point. It's like, oh, it's how you get found nowadays, because the record labels, what little are left, are not going out there and searching, you know, and holding auditions, all that kind of stuff. Where they're finding folks is on YouTube. So that's the easiest way to get yourself known, unfortunately. And is there a lot of original stuff going on? I mean, I see amazing players all the time on YouTube. You know, kids who are like 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're playing guitar 100 times better than me, who's been playing since I was 15, you know, for 38 years or whatever. So, and that's great, because, you know, but is anything ever going to happen with that? You know, are any of these kids, these hot young virtuosos, ever going to make a living playing music? I don't know. That's the question, right? Because a lot of them aren't. A lot of them aren't. Sometimes, you know, you just got to do it and enjoy it and love it. Maybe it's not going to be a money-making career. Who knows? But yeah, there's so many, and that's someone else asked me that recently. It's like, you know, did you see this hot young female guitar player? And it's like on YouTube, she's got 1 million videos. I saw, oh yeah, she's great, but you know what the problem is? There's like 100 more just like her. So it's like, you know, people, again, the attention span people don't have. So it's like, you know, is someone going to just sit and watch her for the next 6 months? No, they'll watch 1 or 2 of her videos. Oh, that's cool. And, oh, but look at this one. And then look at that one. And they've moved on to 1 million other things. So there's no attention span these days based on social media and everything we have available on the internet. It's just, it's just a buffet of millions of cool things that nobody wants to spend too much time on anything, because there's so much else to discover. But then, you know, if you ask someone, you know, 6 months from now, it's like, oh, what are some of the cool people you've seen on YouTube or on, you know, new bands you've listened to? It's like, oh man, I don't know. Geez, so many of them. I couldn't tell you, right? It's a shame. All right, our last question today from NP. Metal has often been looked down on as, and by the way, NP, it's not that I have been neglecting your question, but like I've said before, I'm not picking every question anymore. So you got to really grab me with some of your questions, right? Because there's so many to choose from, and I want to keep these episodes short. So, but I'm going to get to your question today. Metal has often been looked down on as for dummies because it's loud and brash, but it's often been at the forefront of protest music, starting with Black Sabbath. It was particularly strong in the 80s, where punk left off, especially being anti-war. Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax all had anti-war social justice issues on their albums. Why do you think metal doesn't get the credit as a form of protest music that the Woodstock generation of music does? Well, it's a different time, dude. You know, the late 60s, early 70s, we had the Vietnam War going on, which kind of took over the social conscious of everybody in this country. And it was a way different time, you know, kids and people protesting at universities and colleges and schools and, you know, in front of the White House and all this kind of stuff. And that was like the big thing at the time. Now it's like, you know, we're at war with like half the universe, right? It's just so it doesn't get credit because protesting was more of a thing of that time period. Okay, you have people, you know, now protest about all sorts of stuff. You protest about, you have lesbian and gay community protesting about, you know, how they're perceived. You have, transgender people protesting about how they're perceived. You have people protesting against our president. You have people protesting against, you've got one party versus another. It's just all this stuff. But war protesting, you know, like military action protesting, that kind of thing, anti-war type of thing. Metal doesn't get credit for it because it's not a big thing right now. And I don't know a ton of bands that are still, you know, maybe in the 80s, yeah, you know, like Megadeth has always done a lot of lyrics about, you know, anti-political, anti-social, war, all that sort of stuff. But it's just a different time. You know, there's just so many other things going on. And again, also, we've got social media, okay, which makes, you can protest by tweeting stuff on Twitter, right, or on Facebook, or all this kind of stuff. So the times have changed. So it really doesn't matter. The reason nobody talks about it is because nobody cares, all right? You can protest any way now. Back in the day, protesting was marching, showing up somewhere, and voicing your opinion. Now you can sit at the comfort of your own home on the couch watching TV, and you can protest and spew your venom all over the internet in a million different ways. So bands don't get, nobody's saying that, well, metal is, heavy metal bands are doing their thing to protest all the shit that's going on in the world. It's because nobody cares. Okay, because people do it themselves. And you know, I don't think people anymore. See, back in the Woodstock era, it's like a lot of what bands were singing about and playing for had a lot to do with the social consciousness of what was going on in the day. And that was an outlet for people. So young people and what have you, they would go listen to the music, they'd get the message, and it was, you know, what was happening at the time. It's different today. Do people really listen to, you know, rock lyrics as a way to kind of vent their frustration with society? I don't think so anymore. And the problem is, too, most of the popular music that's out there today that people listen to have nothing to do with any of that stuff. You look at the top 20 hits of the, you know, the Billboard charts, all that kind of stuff. What are these people singing about? You know, the country bands are singing about, you know, drinking beer on a Saturday, I miss my baby type of thing. The rappers, God knows what they're singing about, you know, what's going on in the hood and things like that. And, you know, the pop and dance music, it's all about, you know, relationship and love and all this kind of, nobody's, you know, none of the popular acts are singing about a lot of things that are really, really relevant. Okay, and those are the masses that are you know, listening to much of the music. So people like us who still listen to bands that are singing about, you know, interesting topics, that's not being consumed by the masses, unfortunately. So there you have it. 40 minutes, questions and answers. Visit us on the web at www.citytranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're here on the mighty YouTube. Lots of classic album wars coming up this week. Also, Mike Antonelli and I are going to be doing Pink Floyd top 10 song that's coming up. A bunch of other things in the works. So stay tuned. We'll see you real soon. Have a good rest of the weekend, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.